Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Webcomic Bookclub podcast.
Hey, you said it right this time.
Yeah, I know. I had like a month of practice. That's what the hiatus was for.
Yeah, we are not good at schedules.
Well, it was just really poor timing. Honestly, it was a last minute choice to record when we did, but now we have better equipment, more knowledge on how to do this properly, more comics to look into, and an amazing fan base that absolutely loves everything that we do.
I don't think we have a single person following us on SoundCloud.
One of these things is not like the others. Hello, I am Zae.
And I'm Mek,
And this week, what we're going to be talking about is a comic called Holystone.
which is apparently very small, despite being as, I guess, built out as it is.
Yeah, this comic is very interesting. So, just for a basic guideline, I went over it a little bit on last week's podcast. But basically, the premise of it is that gods are real. The gods were created, and they can kind of and they're more powerful depending on how many people are praying or kind of given into that god.
Followers is the word you're looking for.
Yes, followers of that god. And so specifically, we follow a new god that has just come back to life basically from the brink. And was given a new attribute. Originally, it was the god of earth, and it got turned into the god of faith.
Which seems like it would be completely overpowered.
Well, not strictly. It seems as though the way that the gods work is they're very, very specific on what will make them more powerful. So, the god of life, if you're living your life to the fullest, that god is more powerful so long as you're a follower of that god.
Now, one thing I would like to bring up is there's actually a moment in the comic where the god of faith, its ability to have followers is described a little bit, and it was made out as if anyone believing anything fed into faith's power. For example, Annabelle, one of the main characters, who didn't like faith and didn't follow faith, was so adamant about not liking gods that fed into faith's power. That was her faith.
But if she was a follower of any other god, it wouldn't have fed into faith.
That's true.
And that's where their power really becomes important. So, as you said, the god of faith, anybody believing in anything would feed into god of faith. But the god of faith didn't exist up until now, so it has no followers.
Yeah. So it has to bring a new group of followers.
Exactly.
Into it.
And it just seems purely as though so long as you believe something will happen, that thing will happen so long as you're a follower of this god.
Yes.
That's how that one works. And of course, there's gods for every attribute. There's life, there's death, there's god of the hunt, there's god of destruction, there's god of fear, there's all the different kinds of gods.
Yeah. So far, only a few have been introduced, but a few more have been hinted at. So.
And they're constantly talking about lost gods and really abstract gods that it can be really dangerous on the high seas and things like that. So it's a very, very god heavy, but right now it's purely focused on this new one being born, which was it was bringing back of a dead god, of a taboo god. So it's an interesting concept. I actually really, really like the concept, and I like kind of how the world is.
The execution wasn't too bad either. It's got a pretty well paced storyline, as far as I can tell.
Okay, I'm gonna say this right now. I suggested this comic, and after reading it, I don't like this comic anymore.
No?
I really don't. I don't think I'm gonna be able to keep up with it. It's just now getting to a point where I kind of enjoy it, and that was 200 pages or something.
You know what? I will agree with you there. I suppose there was a lot of political stuff going on, which is kind of dull. But I mean, it tends to balance that very well with the escapades of the pirate crew that is housed, or that that houses faith.
And that is very true, and it's a very interesting thing of these basically vagabonds are the people who found this god or brought this god back, and now they're religious zealots technically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Technically, they really are very bad at not being pirates. Although almost the moment they get to the mainland, we completely lose them. All those characters are completely gone.
That's true. Not really gone, just dispersed. Each of them went off to do their own thing.
the moment they get off the ship, the next time we see them is they're all being arrested for something that they didn't do.
The next time we see all of them at the same
next time we
time.
see all of them at the same time, but like we never see them again. I don't remember what any of them did.
Okay.
Get drunk and pass out.
That was actually a lot of them. The black guy, I can't remember his name, he went off to talk to a judge, and there was like some gay tension in there.
I think that was his brother.
Oh.
Although that
I misread that completely.
Although I will say they're very adamant at saying like it's not really taboo in this world.
Yeah.
So
the pirate captain, Annabelle, I remember her name. She went off to free basically the god of ashes, which was previously the god of fire.
that was not her intent.
Oh no, she was freeing a spy.
Yeah, she was freeing a spy to help out someone else, but it was those people kind of sent Annabelle in there in order to cause havoc for them to free the god of ash, and they didn't know. She didn't know she was doing this for them.
Yeah. She would have been pissed if she did.
Oh, she would have murdered so many people, or tried.
Yeah, and then Annabelle's wife went off to talk to Fia. I think so. Yeah. Went off to talk to a relative, who is actually the Ken. I think.
Yeah, I think it's pronounced
Ken of the god of life.
Oh, and that's one thing we need to mention. Each god chooses a single being of which to kind of be attached to, almost like
basically a high
vessel.
priest.
Or like a vessel for them.
Yeah.
Because without this being, they won't be able to exist and things like that. They confuse with them and do all these crazy things. And it's called their Ken.
Yeah, it's basically just a way to channel their power more precisely.
Yes, that seems very accurate. And what's interesting is Fia, who ends up becoming the Ken for Faith, she was going to be chosen by Life to be the next Ken, which is basically the biggest god.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, Life being super important to a lot of people.
Yeah, but she refused, if I'm not mistaken.
When she realized she was going to be picked next, she realized that the previous Ken is going to be dying soon, she ran away.
Yes. Which we don't have a whole lot of that story, unfortunately.
No.
That would be very interesting.
I said earlier, I didn't quite like this comic. Now there is like a certain like syndrome that comics come down with, and it's a very easy one to slip into. And I swear there should be a term for this. If not, I'm gonna have to come up with something because I'm gonna be noticing this a lot. The artist for this, the creator for this world, spent too much time making the world. And it seems as though they're super excited to show you the world that they've made, but not willing to do like a story in it. It seems. Now
they want to show you the world, not show you how people interact in the world.
Or maybe they're showing you too thin a slice of it. But they're letting you know that the rest of the world exists. But like, where's the rest of? Why can't I see the rest of that? It's like, don't worry, we'll get to it later. All right, we're only 200 pages in.
Now
we're still doing this political bullshit.
Now
come on, Star Wars. Anyways,
I will say that's true. That is a huge problem. But almost equally a problem is if you have too many main characters, which is kind of what you would have to do to show off an entire world consistently.
That is true. So how about you just not do the massive world if you're not going to be able to show the whole thing? And when I was kind of pulling up stuff for this comic, I found out that there's a world page on the comic. And it is an entire page describing the world and the geography.
I'm seeing like 2 paragraphs for the geography itself.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 paragraphs for the different races. A shit ton of paragraphs for the gods.
The different languages. They haven't spoken a single different language yet.
No, they haven't. I think they've hinted at it, but they never actually like showed people not understanding this language.
Yeah,
it's been a case of like English in brackets.
Yeah, it's English in brackets language.
Yeah.
And then it goes into religions, which is super important because they are gods themselves. So how they worship their gods are super important to it. But
yeah,
it almost seems as though like it's just there's too much world building and not enough world building.
There's too much world building, not enough character building.
Almost, and it's making the story suffer. So, how much effort do you? Okay, so from when you read the comic, how much effort do you think was put into describing how gods like join up with their khens and how the old world war was fought?
Not enough.
Really? You don't think there was enough for that?
I, for the longest time, didn't understand it.
Wow,
That's
that's fascinating. I picked up
basically
on that really quickly.
that's basically my idea of it, is just I didn't understand it when they first explained it. So either they didn't say enough about it, or they said it assuming you understood basic concepts already, like that were basic to them, but maybe not to anyone else.
See, it's interesting because I actually picked up on that stuff really quickly. That's why I was really annoyed when they kept on like adding on to it.
Oh,
It's like I understand how this works. I can at least make up the unimportant bits or figure everything else out. But then they kept on going.
they
But
made it a main focus.
yeah, but I use this for reference. So how much do they talk about that versus who's the main protagonist and who's the main antagonist?
There's too many protagonists and antagonists.
There's only one antagonist now. Do you remember who that
that's
is?
true. The darkness or whatever.
The God Eater.
Yeah,
Now we were like
and
just introduced to the God Eater, so admittedly,
the and that's actually kind of a cop out character, honestly, because
absolutely.
there was the antagonist of just this worker for the government chasing Annabelle and Fia for Faith, because her clan was supposed to be chosen as the new Ken. You had the Ken of Death versus the Ken of Life, because the Ken of Death was growing in power thanks to a war.
Which went nowhere.
Went nowhere. The Ken of Death is just being brought up again as an example of, well, Death isn't a bad guy anymore. And then you have Fire and Air from way back in the day.
The old war.
The old war, yep. They were bad guys, and now they're good guys. And now you have the darkness in, 350 pages? Something like that?
No. We're not even at 350 pages in this comic yet.
Yeah. So they've introduced far too many good versus evil situations, and then just resolved resolved it all by saying the bad guys are now good.
Practically. I mean, there may still be a couple of like weird quirks going on with the God of Life because it just lost the aspect of fire to the God of Ash.
The God of Life was actually interesting. They did make that out to be more of a bad guy character than anyone thought.
Yeah, that is very, very interesting. And I feel as though this comic is getting right to a point where I'd be interested in it. The only problem is they could have cut out 90% of it leading up to this, which ended up just being pointless world building unless they do something with it later.
And maybe they've learned their lesson. Maybe that's why you're finally being okay with it, because they've learned, okay, this world building thing is not as good to show as it is to just do and passively have happen.
Yeah, and that actually would make a lot of sense. And don't get me wrong, I am like ripping on a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of this comic I love.
Oh yeah, it's overall a great comic. It actually, you introduced me to it, and I'm now going to be following it just because I enjoy it that much.
I introduced you to it, and now I'm not going to be following it.
Yeah.
Because I've just started getting really nitpicky about things that I can't seem to ignore.
Yeah.
But a couple things that I really like about it. The art style is really solid.
It is. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best I've seen, but it's very strict to its style.
And it's very consistent.
Yes. It hasn't really changed that much, which is a good thing in this comic's case.
It is an amazing thing in this comic's case, especially one that's going on for 200 pages.
Yeah.
I mean, you would see a lot of changes. I haven't seen anything. And they even, they never have elements that are different styles. You never see someone little chibified in the background doing an expression.
Yeah.
They're just doing that expression. There's no cop-outs. There's no different artifacts. There's nothing strange or weird about it. They go exactly with the style that they have.
And I think that has to do with the comic's tone, because overall it is a tone of just this is a very serious story. There's some humor in it, but it's as if the characters are joking around. It's normal levels of this character is joking with this character. The overall story takes itself seriously.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And actually, I really enjoyed the jokes.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the jokes.
Because the story was so serious, the jokes were all the more refreshing.
Well, one that I actually loved a lot was right at the beginning, where they just freed the God of Faith kind of by accident, and they're running away. That whole dramatic scene of bullet gets shot into the door right when they're trying to open it. They turn around and the person's doing a dramatic pose on the stairway. on the stairway behind them and saying like, oh, like, you're gonna be stopped by me. It's like, and they said their name, and the person standing there is like, stop standing like that. You're gonna hurt your back. They're doing like this dramatic back pose, and I thought it was hilarious because it just put that whole situation into light. And like, this is a pirate character. She doesn't care about this dramatic like entrance this person is making. And what they ended up doing was they got her into doing like this whole speech, and they left.
Yeah, pretty much.
And geez, it's just those little jokes like that I absolutely adore. I actually really like the writing in this for the individual characters.
Now, I will say for all the stuff they've done that kind of slows the story down, they could have done that very easily if they had had a once every weekday upload schedule, but instead it's set to once a week, and as far as I've seen, since I've been following it, it hasn't met that goal often enough. I think it's met that goal maybe twice in the last like month and a half or so.
So it's only uploaded twice in the last month and a half, is
twice or three times, yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's not consistent with its upload schedule. That's a problem, especially when it promises to be consistent.
And this is an interesting catch-22, wherein like the comic isn't that popular. Like when you and me were looking around for other information on the comic and on the artist and stuff, we found out that this comic is not that well known, as it turns out.
Yeah. What was it, rank 1,121 on top 100 webcomics?
1,191.
Oh.
On top 100. The website top 100. It had one vote this month.
Which, to be fair, it's the 2nd of January.
Fair point. I don't know when their refreshes, though.
I would imagine the end of the month, so that would have been December.
But still, we're talking about, at the same time, the things in the top 100 had 300.
Yeah.
So it's really bad that it only had one so far. On the official Twitter, the at Holystone Comic, there's only 7 people following them.
Yeah.
And
granted, only 85. Granted, only 85 tweets, but
let's see when their first tweet was. So it seems as though they tweet out almost every single page. So
seems to be, yeah. So it's been for the last 85 pages in that case.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't know they had a Twitter. I didn't know they were on the top 100.
I
didn't know any of this stuff. But I was saying before about an interesting catch-22. So this thing isn't uploading a lot, and there's not and that seems to be feeding directly into not a lot of people following it. Like, I had completely forgotten this thing existed for the longest time. Went back into it. There's like 10 pages I needed to read.
Yeah.
So they really aren't uploading that much. And you can only imagine it's because there's not a whole lot of people reading it. It's like, that's super disheartening. So you can imagine that, there's not a whole lot of incentive to keep on updating as much because not a whole lot of people are reading your comic.
Yeah, basically, the less and more sporadically you update, the less likely people are to enjoy reading your comic, the less likely you are to try to keep an update schedule.
Yeah, it's a catch-22. Yeah. So it comes down to a
feedback loop is more like.
Yeah, infinite feedback loop. So it comes to a really unfortunate situation wherein the best way to get out of it is
upload consistently regardless.
Yeah, which is really disheartening.
Yeah.
Incredibly disheartening. But basically this comic is in an interesting spot wherein I would say it's probably in its death throes. If it's uploading that infrequently, if the person seems like they have other things that they are working on, it says that they're a graphic illustrator, freelance, things like that. Did we actually say the artist name?
I don't believe we did. Casey Columbus.
Yes, Casey Columbus. Good luck Googling it. I could find no information on this person. I can only hope they're doing things like good on their own time. I haven't seen anything.
Now, the sporadic update schedule would also make sense if Holystone isn't exactly a focus for them, it's a hobby.
Yes, and that's possible. I mean, oftentimes things that have these massive worlds and massive backgrounds are things they've been trying to come up with for years, and only now they're actually doing a comic in.
Yeah.
That's a hobby. Just through and through, that's a hobby. So, I mean, it's perfectly likely that it's going to continue like this, but even on their main banner, it says they upload every Saturday. So,
yeah.
Really unfortunate.
We might see more of this later. It might continue on or it might die. Either way, I'm ready to just keep reading it. Like, it seems like it's getting to a good point. it almost seems like it's reaching a climax point. Like in a novel, you'd reach the climax point and then just have a little bit left to taper off. It almost seems like it's there.
A couple more things I want to say before we continue here. What is up with that one species of like cat people? The one that Annabelle is?
Oh, yeah, like the leopards or whatever.
I never picked up that they were cat people the entire time
Seriously?
I was reading it at first. Yeah.
Dude, I saw the like first page of the first chapter and was like, cat person.
I thought they were bald. I legitimately I thought that was just their skin.
So this artist does not quite draw fur well enough. Or does not portray fur well enough, I should say.
Yes. Like it's only a couple little hints that made me know that they were cat people was like they referenced like Annabelle was referenced as a kitten a couple of times.
You didn't notice the muzzle, the teeth, the whiskers.
It's not that pronounced. The tail I noticed, but I mean, that's not, honestly, I just never picked up on it. It
Fair
never
enough.
clicked fully.
Now, that being said, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means they kind of had to do fur a little bit differently than they did.
Yeah, and that's perfectly acceptable.
Especially
I
for
still
a
wanted to say,
webcomic.
I still wanted to say that it was just funny that I never picked up on that. When I realized it, I felt like a complete idiot because it was so obvious. But it was kind of strange not knowing that for the longest time. I thought they just had like squares all over their skin and that they had like kind of like longer faces and tails of skin. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, the more you describe it, the dumber it sounds that you didn't realize.
Yeah, no, I realized it
also,
was
they're all
incredibly...
like yellow.
Yeah, they're all
literally yellow.
Yeah.
So
this is not a Coldplay song, everybody. That I just kind of wanted to point that out too. Yeah, I think that's about.
I don't have anything more to say about it.
Right. So
decent, not great, but worth a look at.
Yeah, I would say worth a look at. I would have a tough time recommending keeping it as like a comic that you go back into. You seem like you're going to be doing so I'll probably talk to you if anything gets interesting. But
the only thing that could prevent me from doing so is if the update schedule continues to be sporadic. Like, I'm going to be taking a look at this once a week, and if in the next 4 weeks or so it doesn't update on the day it says it updates enough, I'm probably just going to be done with it.
Tweet at them, ask them what's going on. Honestly, if anybody's listening to this and thinks like this is a really bad situation to be in, just like talk to the artist.
Yeah.
Like literally just reading it isn't enough. You have to literally let them know, hey, I really like what you're doing here. Although if they do end up closing down shop, which would be incredibly unfortunate to have happen, I would absolutely be up for buying the world from them. Like if that was a possible thing, I'd be like, here is some money. I will like take the rights to this world that you've spent time making and I will treat it well. Because the world seems like a really fun place for me to like design in and draw in and do things in. And I would love to just be okay with doing that to the best of my ability. Yeah. Holystone at holystone-comic.com.
All right. On to the next comic.
All right. We have a few here to look through, or a few here to random through.
So in a couple weeks, it looks like we're going to be reading
Monster Pulse.
Monster Pulse. Now, this is an interesting comic. This is actually one of my picks. And it was a comic that I found, read about halfway through, and then lost for some reason. I don't remember why. And I got back into it and thoroughly enjoyed it again. I've never not enjoyed this comic. Basically, the premise of it is these kids basically have a part of their body removed from them and turned into a monster. It still functions as it would, as if it were still part of their body, but it is also outside of them. It is a separate entity. And basically their goal is to prevent this scientific group from making more of these monsters because they don't want anyone to suffer as they have.
All right. So it is currently the 2nd when we're recording this. We'll be putting this up on the 3rd, a little bit off from the normal schedule, but given the massive hiatus we had, that's perfectly fine. Where we should be meeting up, let me pull up my schedule.
Now, while he's doing that, if you want to find this comic, you can find it at www.monster-pulse.com.
Really? You said www. What is this, 1990s? http://www.monster-pulse.com. pulse.com/. But no, we should be meeting up on the 16th for the next podcast. So if anybody's interested in keeping up, we should be keeping these more consistent from here on out. I'm giving Mek like a pitchfork or something, and he can stab me if I end up not reading it or something.
Tiny pitchfork.
It's actually just a fork. So thank you everybody for listening.
We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Have a wonderful time. Bye.